Hey everybody, I'm Jack Hammer, and today I got a real special guest with me today. Got Coach Noah Johnston. You might recognize him from Twitter. I've seen him out there a little bit, Coach Johnston. If you're not following him, definitely a guy that you should be following. It's at Coach_N Johnston. He's a really bright guy, especially when it comes to the defensive stuff. He keeps me on my toes, and we haven't been able to chat before, so I wanted to get him on and get his takes on the draft and the quarterbacks that we're gonna see, and maybe if we have time, get into the second and third round as well. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Spring kind of breaking out here in the East Coast. We're in the 80s tomorrow, so it's going to be real nice for us out here, and ready to finally get this draft over with. And
yeah. I hear you. I'm with you on that. I can't wait till Thursday around 5:30 or whatever when the pick's done, and we can just start talking about it. And who knows, maybe we're going to be able to see two picks come out in that first round. But definitely want to get number 3 done. What are your thoughts on some of the quarterbacks? Let's start with which quarterback you'd like to chat about first.
Well, I think it's worth just talking about the ones that we think they're going to be there. I think it's pretty. I mean, we're pretty much assumed that Lawrence and Wilson are not going to be there. I think the Jags have pretty much said as much, that they're going to take Lawrence, and then I'm pretty sure the Jets are going to take Zach Wilson. So you got Fields, Jones, and Lance. Those are the three major players. I mean, Kyle said 5, right? So you figure Lawrence, Wilson, and then those 3.
Yeah, those would be the other 3. Out of Fields and Lance and Jones, how do you rank them?
I've got Lance, then Fields, and then Jones. Just as a philosophy, like I do not prescribe to. I would not take a quarterback with a B arm that high. It's just if I'm going to pay that high of a price, he's got to have physical ability. And I'm not talking about the running stuff. The running, that's just additive. I mean, it's great if you have it. If you don't, then for me, it's not critical. But the big arm is or the lack of big arm scares me a lot about with Mac. I know he's great. He's got great anticipation, and he can make up for some of that with the anticipatory throws, but just not having that arm just scares me. And it's kind of like if you're working for a bank and you're building a risk algorithm, like maybe some people that don't pay their that don't pay their credit cards would pay their mortgage, but I'd rather just take those people out because I feel like I'm getting rid of the risk. I'm worried about that arm.
Sure. I know. I hear you. You know, I've broken down almost all of his games from on my YouTube channel from this year, and just got off of doing another breakdown of the game from Michigan against Michigan in 2019, and it shows up definitely. You know, that lack of arm strength on the deep balls. That's where you see it, right?
Yep.
You know,
and yeah, I think some of this stuff can be, he doesn't. It doesn't, like you said, on the deep balls. It's not so much velocity even on the short stuff. Like I'll give you a contrast. Like for Kyle Trask, you can see his lack of arm on his short balls. Even I mean, it's just everything kind of just ducks, cracks in the air. And but for Max his short stuff is pretty tight. It's like you said, it's on the deep stuff.
Yeah, it's usually when he's trying to get the ball down the field, like it's his deep ball, really. I mean, that's the easiest way to put it, because he can throw, at least what I've seen on film, I've seen him be able to hit a 20-yard out on a pretty good line. You know, it's not on a straight line like Trey Lance's. I mean, Trey Lance, when he throws that out route, he's able to put that ball where the ball doesn't really even have any kind of arc.
And for me, it's like it's not an effortless thing. It's when I'm watching him throw the deep ball, it's like he's got to like put everything into it. Whereas, like, when you watch some of these other guys, it's just like, and they're, and there it is. So that's what's got me worried a little bit by him. I think all 3 of them, and I don't know how much this has been talked about, but I think pluses for all 3 of them is right. I mean, Alabama is the pinnacle of college football, right? So you talk about Alabama. So we know Mac has been able to be a quarterback of that program. It does say something. I mean, you have to be you have to be able to withstand criticism and be able to hold yourself at a certain level to be a quarterback of that program. And I would say the same. It's not to that level, but Ohio State is a major college program, and I mean for Justin to be a quarterback of that program, that's a pretty big deal too. And just to be able to hold himself and be held accountable. Like I'm sure when Justin Fields walks into any sort of place in Columbus, like they immediately know who he is, and it's certainly a special position. And then I think it's been said before, NDSU is the Alabama of FCS football. And for Trey to walk in as a redshirt freshman and to become starting quarterback and to be the starting quarterback of that team, that's a big deal as well. So I think all those guys have I think check pluses in that area where they've been through the fire as far as being a starting quarterback of a big time program.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that some of the trials that's kind of led them to where they are? Like you mentioned all three of them, their pluses are playing at these big time programs, but you also look at Mac Jones having to sit behind Jalen Hurts and Tua. You look at Justin Fields having to transfer. You look at Trey Lance, not even getting offered at a top level FBS school, so so choosing to go to the FCS. Do you think that might have helped them as well as in their development?
Yeah, I think everyone. I mean, I think in life, you're right. You're kind of defined by your trials and tribulations, and they either going to make you stronger or bring you down. I mean, we're talking about guys that are all going to be first round draft picks, so I think they've certainly made their way through their trials, and now they're just starting the next step. So yeah, I mean, we've got Justin, Justin was a top prospect. Trevor Lawrence, I think, was always ahead of him. But so they were always kind of neck and neck, 1 and 2, and everyone talks. He was on the show on Netflix, so he's always been in the limelight. And then he got beat out by Fromm and decided to transfer to Ohio State, where he became the starter and was a highly touted NFL prospect. And then you've got Trey Lance, who was recruited for a different position. Nobody wanted to give him a scholarship as a quarterback except for NDSU. And I think a team came in late, right? But then he told them, "No, I'm committed to NDSU," and he decided to bet on himself and go there and play. And then you've got Mac Jones, who sat behind Tua and watched him play, and then came in and got his shot and won a national championship. So,
yeah, I think Lance got a couple of offers from smaller schools, right, at the D1 level, or at the FBS level. But it was one of those things. I think from what I remember hearing was like, well, I can either go play for a national championship with these guys, or I can just play games with this level, because the way that the FBS works, there's 5 conferences. That's where you're going to come from. The other 5 conferences are just kind of names, right? So
yeah.
he chose North Dakota State to go play for championships.
I'd be curious. This is a little bit of a side conversation, but I'd be curious to see how NDSU does, especially recruiting quarterbacks the next couple of years, because I mean they've been able to put Carson Wentz and now Trey Lance out there, especially if Lance does end up doing well. That's a major recruiting tool for that program.
Yeah, and especially the way they go about their business and what they ask of those guys. If he's able to step out and, Wentz was he was in the MVP conversation year 2, right? And so if Lance can come out and play well early on in his career, or even in year 2 or 3, that could really boost up their recruiting stock.
Yeah,
for sure.
So that'll be interesting to see how that folds out, or even if they end up moving up to Division 1 or Division or FBS.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they all kind of went through their own trials. If I had to if I had to say maybe who went through the most or had the hardest path, maybe Lance. But I mean, to sit behind Tua and watch him get drafted and all. I mean, when you go to Alabama, you definitely know you're going to compete because they're all everyone on that roster is stacked. So like they're not going to really hand you a position. You're going to have to work for it. So he definitely, I think, if Mac Jones definitely earned his starting spot. I mean, they didn't. It wasn't just given to him.
Yeah, he had to fight and get there and put himself in position. So when he finally got a chance, he was ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I do like about him was the fact that when he wasn't getting his chances to play, he was doing everything he could on the scout team. He was well. I think he won like a award or something. I can't remember what it was, but he was a standout on their scout team, and having to go against that Alabama defense every day would be helpful, I would think.
Yeah, and I think people have said where what how could this person be so good because they were sitting in front of this person and couldn't beat that person out. I mean, number one, there's always room for growth, right? So where you are and where you're at now is not always, it's not the same. It's not. I mean, Matt could have been terrible his freshman year and might be really good now. It's not. It's development. It's not. Not everyone is going to just walk in and be awesome right away. Especially at that position where so much of it is knowledge and being able to do some intangible things. Like you don't really see a lot of freshman quarterbacks just step in and be awesome. And it's especially at that program, Alabama. Like what I think Tua did it right. Tua was a true freshman when they threw him out there in the Natty.
I think he was. Yeah, I think that was his
Yeah,
true.
But they didn't. Prior to that, I mean, I think Hurd pretty much ran that program, and then they just needed a jolt in that national championship game, and they threw Tua out there. So, I mean, realistically, when they did put Tua out there, he wasn't really a freshman. He was. I mean, he was in that program for a year. So.
Yeah, he was basically it was the end of that year. So yeah, I see what you're saying, and that makes a lot of sense. That's one of the things that everybody, all these guys have issues in their backgrounds from that standpoint, as far as having to battle and get there, and the other part is like for Fromm and Fields, there's a hierarchy there, right? You go to the national championship game as a freshman, now you've got Justin Fields behind you, but Fields has got to be way better than that guy in practice in order to take that job, no matter how they are, so that's one of the things that people get on the Georgia coach about, oh, he should have played him. And it's the same thing at Alabama. You've got Hurts, who's taking them to the national championship game. You got Tua, who wins it. Tua's a 5-star recruit. The other, Jones is a 3-star recruit. That 5-star is going to get chances before the 3-star usually.
Yeah,
I mean, how that works out.
Yeah, the 5-star. Yeah, 5-star. It's 5-star is 5-star. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are going to be the ones that get the chance first usually, unless the other guy just really comes out and just blows you away.
Right.
So
right.
It's just really interesting. That's one of the discussions that's really gone around a lot on Twitter throughout this whole process. So and I brought it up a couple times myself, so I'm not going to act like I'm not. But part of the reason I brought it up though is because mine was I'd been hearing it's being used to tear one guy down and not the other, but it's like, hey, stop. Look at all these guys all have their issues. They've all battled it. One of them's going to be the pick in the end of the day. You
can make, and I've heard like Vish said this, is like you could make your case for any of them. Like, oh, this guy's great, and he's the best one, and these guys aren't because of this and this. Like, there's enough for you to state your case and for any of them. So like I didn't really partake in smashing of other prospects or anything. I just kind of said who I liked, and I may have had some fun with some of the Fields guys, but I don't think I don't think Fields is a necessarily bad prospect. I wouldn't feel necessarily comfortable taking him this high. Although if I had to choose between him and Mac, I would just go with Fields because of the arm. I do see some of the issues with decision making, holding on to the ball, and all of that. I wouldn't like to take him number 3, but if if gun was put to my head and I couldn't take Lance and I had to go between Mac and Fields, I would go Fields.
Yeah, I think both of us have Lance ahead of Fields, which there's definitely a part of the Twitter population that thinks we're crazy for having Lance over Fields, right? But I think we both are kind of seeing some of the same things. And I hear you saying about some of the decision making, maybe late on some throws.
Decision making, late on throws. I think some of the same questions I have with Alabama. Alabama has awesome weapons, but so does Ohio State. Like those two kids are going to be first round draft picks. Like they're Ohio State's wide receivers are going to be their 2 starters are going to be first round draft picks next year. So they've got weapons as well. So it's not like he's throwing to nobodies. Now it's not the same as Alabama, but he's got weapons there. And so I have sort of the same question there. And I don't think he's not, and I don't think the issue is an intelligence thing. I just think it's not the same. Like you can be really intelligent and not be able to read a defense or read it in time, because it's not what it really is. It's processing in information under pressure and under physical pressure. Like you have to process it before you get drilled, like before you get hurt, or before you get hit. So it's real time. It's instantaneous. It's you don't have a lot of time to sit there and look at things. So, and you can be someone that's not really intelligent and be able to process very quickly on the football field. It doesn't always translate that way.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. That's one of the things that's kind of driven me. I've gotten frustrated about just throughout this process is people have taken the Justin Fields is a slow processor to mean that he's not smart. You see that all over the place, and that's never been, I think, what anybody's been saying. That he's not smart. It's exactly what you said. It's that ability to see it and make your body do it as soon as you see it. It's not book smart. So when I was coaching, some of my best players were some of my not good students. They were able to get out there on the field and react and just do things that other kids couldn't. Whereas, and I had some that were really bright students that were really good players too. They don't.
I think Richard Sherman is an example of a guy that's super bright and also is able to see things on the field and also react to them. And I mean, I think he's got a phenomenal ability to it's really being able to see something and then be able to tell your body and control your body and tell your body what to do despite your body wanting to do something else or react in a different way. And to have total body control based on what your visuals are, it's kind of a phenomenal skill. And it definitely it applies to him, in which if the receiver gives him a shake and he knows he's got inside leverage, he's not going to fall for it because he knows where his help is and where he can bite and where he can't. And for a quarterback, it's being able to decipher on the fly what his defense is doing and then where you need to place the ball and then put it there.
Yeah, and especially at the quarterback spot, because you've got to be able to see that, and those guys are moving so fast, your receivers and the DBs and everything, that you've got to be able to. That's where like the anticipation part of it comes in, and why everybody talks about that with Jones is because you've got to be able to see it, and you've got to be able to get the ball out of your hand now. I mean, it's just, and because you watch like little throws from Fields, and even Lance and Jones does it sometimes too, where it's like, if this guy had just thrown it right now, this is a touchdown, but it takes them. It can't even give you a length of time, but it's basically that fast of between being a touchdown and an incompletion, or a touchdown and a interception. Or
yeah, I think I always kind of say is when you're looking at time wise in terms of what the difference of fraction of seconds is, look at 40 times and how 40 times, like like a couple like tenth of a second to make a huge difference in how someone evaluates 40 time. And I mean, and that can apply onto the football field, because if a tenth of a second can mean that you're beat, or you're open, or can mean the difference in recovering. So
Yeah. Well, it's I put on Twitter at one point. I did a picture of a video of Justin Fields and um, Mac Jones. They're both throwing the deep wheel route to the left side of the field, and it's the Olave throw from Justin Fields against Penn State down the left sideline, right? And he hits him right about the 5 yard line. He falls into the end zone for a touchdown. And with Mac Jones, it's Jalen Waddle, and Waddle's got to kind of turn and catch the ball behind him. But what's funny about that is when you watch those, they both quarterbacks threw the ball the same distance. Both of them threw the ball 50 yards down the field. One receiver's got to make an adjustment, whereas the other one doesn't. And
right.
I think I'd followed that up with, something to do with the speed of the receivers too. I was like, I'm pretty sure Waddle's faster than Chris Olave.
Yeah.
No matter how, Olave's a heck of a receiver, but I'm pretty sure Waddle's faster. So he's got to get the ball up quicker to be able to get it to him, right, into that same spot where he's not having to adjust.
That's why some of the thing I think with what I was saying about Wilson is I see people see him waiting on their receiver, or receivers have to wait on his ball. I see him waiting on receivers to get. I think his receivers are slow, and I think when you look at their deep threat was what's his name? I forgot the kid's name. I think it was his high school teammate. I forgot the kids, but he ran at his pro day that he ran like a 4.5 something, and all these pro days times are inflated, so that's really a 4.6. So that's your speed guy at 4.6. Like I think Wilson was throwing guys open, and like I think he was waiting. I think a lot of his stuff was waiting on for DBs to set on for his guys to be able to separate from DBs, and that's why you saw some of those throws where they're waiting on balls because he's waiting to throw it. But I think there's definitely some of that stuff with Mac, and then and there's a difference in when you see the speed on the field, and then being able to place the ball, and is it the quarterback's arm, or is it the receiver's speed? Because there is some of that in play. What
about then it's funny because you had mentioned that to me too in an exchange that we had on Twitter. We were talking about accuracy, and we're watching a play, and sometimes it looks inaccurate when we're watching it on film, but then we don't know the intent of the throw, some of those things at times and whatnot.
Receivers can make you look really accurate if they're. I mean, like I'm sure if we went in the backyard and I was covering, you were throwing to Jerry Rice, and I was covering him. I don't know. You'll probably be 10 for 10, and you don't have to be like extremely accurate because Rice is going to beat me and catch everything. So,
right.
It's really when you're looking at accuracy, you're looking at ball placement. You could really be a 44% passer, but be extremely accurate if your receivers aren't really getting open, or they're not catching the ball, or they're having drops. You can be extremely accurate, but not super productive. It generally does go kind of hand in hand, but in theory it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I hear you. And going back to and taking that to say Trey Lance, because we're both relatively high on Trey Lance. You've got him number 1, I've got him number 2. So for the two of us, if we put that's our best guy, right? When you combine them, when you watch Trey Lance on his deep ball, he gets knocked for that at times. But I think some of that is his receivers just aren't as athletic as where they need to be.
No, I'd agree with that. I think the one receiver I think is number 1. I think he's pretty athletic. They do use he does use a lot of his tight ends are not. I like his tight ends, but they're not super athletic, right? Right. So they're not gonna make some of the crazy things that Pitts will do, or or even Kittle or something like that. But his tight ends are good, but they're not athletic. They're not athletic guys. They're not SEC tight ends. They're not those guys.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. uh, so I think that, like, there's a certain amount of, listen, not Boise State, nor NDSU. I think when you're talking about Division One, that level program, I think they've got a high level athletes for that level. Even Lance aside.
Yeah, the one knock that I have on him, and it's hard to to say this, but he's such a good athlete, right? Trey Lance, he's a Division I athlete, Division I FBS level athlete, could have been a whatever, and so for him when he's playing at the FCS level, the only knock that I have on him is when he starts to run the ball. At that point he's up here compared to here, right? For everybody else, he's definitely a step above, and so. There's plays that maybe I would like to say maybe there's plays that he's making there with his feet that he's not going to make at let's say that if he was at Ohio State, he might not make that same play. Or do you disagree with that?
Yeah, I'd probably disagree with that. I don't know that I would want him trucking everybody on the next. I certainly wouldn't want him doing that on the NFL. He's in the NFL, and I don't know that I would want him doing that in the SEC either. But I mean, he has broken the tackle of a 6'4", 270-pound man. So I mean, I know it's not an SEC athlete, but that's still a big dude.
Sure.
And that's one of the things that he's gonna have to change up on the next level. Is because of his running style, he's going to have to pick and choose those spots. You're not gonna want your quarterback out there, doing that every play. I mean, and he can look to Cam as an example. You don't want to take all those hits. It's not necessary. Evolve yourself as a passer and then use that skill here and there.
Yeah, Justin Fields has that a little bit too, where he doesn't really take people on all that often, but he spins around a lot, right? That's one of his moves as he's running. He likes to spin. That's where he got caught in the Clemson game. He got caught spinning. That guy, squared him up and got him in the ribs on that one shot. But both those guys are but Fields does a better job. You see him really slide at times too. So
yeah, I think they'll probably learn that. I mean, even he's not very athletic. Jimmy hasn't really learned that. That's how he got hurt the first time. And he's still done it at times. I mean, if it's a Super Bowl, okay, yeah, John Elway, go get the touchdown. But I mean, you got to preserve yourself as a quarterback, and playing I don't want to say hero ball, but playing that with that level of recklessness, you got to protect yourself. It's not even protecting yourself per se. You got to see it as really you're protecting the team, because if you're not out there, the next person is you. You have to know that next person is not you.
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah. What's crazy?
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say another thing that's kind of crazy about it when you think about all three of these guys is they don't have a lot of experience, right? They've only Fields has played 22 games, and the other two, if Mac Jones or Trey Lance, if they were to start this year as a rookie and play the full season, they're going to have played as many games in this one season as they've played throughout their college careers. That's kind of crazy to think about too.
Yeah, the thing, that's the one thing you could say about Lawrence is Lawrence has the massive sample size, and I was listening to something about I didn't know this, but I mean, Trevor actually started every game since a freshman year in high school, so he's been the starter since his freshman year in high school, been varsity all the way up until college. So I mean, he's got a lot of QB1 starts under his belt.
Yeah,
I think it kind of stinks for everybody, even just fans of college football, and that this whole COVID thing happened, because I don't know if anybody remembers, but I think NDSU was slated to play, or it was Oregon, I think, this year, and because of COVID, we didn't get to see that. So, I mean, we would have gotten to see Trey Lance versus a Pac-12 school. We would have gotten to see, for as much as BYU had a cupcake schedule this year, that was not their original slated schedule. I mean, BYU does play a tough schedule year in and year out. Like, so that was one of the questions with Wilson is like, did he really develop that much, or was it because of his cupcake schedule? The people that like Wilson say no, he developed and he's awesome, and other people that there's detractors are like, nah, he played a cupcake schedule and it was just neat, and his team was loaded, and that's why he's got great stats and all that.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the detractor. I've always been kind of on the detractor side, but the funny thing with him is it's true. You're right. BYU got screwed up because of the whole pandemic thing. It just blew up their schedule, And then the one game that everybody points to is, oh, look how bad he played against Coastal Carolina. It's interesting because I went back and watched the film of it when I was finally able to get it and watched the film of that game, and he didn't play as bad as when I watched the game on TV. I felt like he played a lot worse than it was when I went back and watched it on film. I was like, hey, he's actually playing pretty good here.
Yeah, I thought he played well in that game. There's two things. I mean, one, remember they scheduled that game on short notice, and BYU flew across the country to South Carolina to play that game. Like, that's not a simple thing. I mean, if to tell, hey, I think they played it on. I think they did it on a couple days' notice. So like to be able to do that and play a good team on short notice, then go to their house and play it, and then be in a position to win the game. Like, I would be curious to what the OC's answer would be when you question him about why you're not putting the ball in your best player's hands in the red zone, because they tend to. I know that you've picked that out, and I think Grant has as well. Is like when they get in the Renzo, they start to run the ball, and they just like even in that game, it showed up where they're running the ball in short yardage, or they're running the ball in critical areas where I want to put it in my best player's hands to let them make the first down.
Yeah, they definitely, when they get in the red zone, they do tend to take it away from them a little bit. And you're right. I think they scheduled that game on a Monday and played it on a Thursday. I think it was, or something like that, Thursday or Friday. Yeah,
so that was a tough
game. It was. He definitely, like I said, he definitely played a lot better than I thought. For me, it's really going back and watching his 2019 film. I don't think he's as good as 2019. He struggles more, right? You see more struggle out of his game there, but he's also playing up in competition level relative to his in a lot of those games too, in relation to the level of talent that he has on his team at BYU.
Yeah, I do think that all of these quarterbacks could have success on the 49ers. I don't think it's not. I don't think that there's going to be a lot of busts in this class. I just don't. I think that it's going to be more maybe like one or two superstar level, maybe superstar level, one or two, and then the rest will be like solid starters, and there might be one bust. I don't think it's going to be like, oh, Trevor Lawrence and then he's a star and the rest are going to bust. I don't see it. I think they'll probably be one or two stars, and then the rest will be pretty good, and maybe there'll be one bust.
Yeah. Like this guy right here, he says, D-Plex says Zach Wilson might take a while, and I can kind of agree with him a little bit just from the fact that he's going to the Jets. I think Lawrence and Wilson, if they go 1-2, they're going to be in probably the toughest situations because they're going to two teams that aren't very good.
Without a doubt. I mean, the 49er, if you're those quarterbacks, right, and you're just talking about what team would you like to be on, I mean, the 49ers would be that team, right? Because they're like, for as much as like we goof on our pass pro, like it's better than the Jets and it's better than Jacksonville. I know the Jets do have what seems to be their left tackle of the future, but they have to figure out all their other spots on the offensive line, and they need to be able to run the ball and all of that. I mean, at least the Niners have weapons on the outside. They have a tight end. They have, Trent Williams did play at a high level last year. They've got a Pro Bowl center in Alex Mack. Tomlinson at least has been serviceable the last couple of years. So I mean, it's definitely a more more comforting place than the other spots.
Yeah, I agree. I think whoever comes here is going to have a chance to win Rookie of the Year if they start, or play a lot of the year. I think they're going to be able to, just because
And
of what you just said. They're coming to a good situation where it's a year removed from going to the Super Bowl. All those guys are coming back. If they just stay healthy, I think they should be okay. They've got a lot of talent here.
yeah,
What's the one thing on Trey Lance that worries you?
I think that in his games, I think when sometimes there's a few times when he's got into trouble, they tend to use him to run the ball as opposed to being a passer, um, and then just obviously experience. But I think that can be made up with playing him. I don't believe. I'm not one of those people that want that if he were to be the pick to sit him this year because the guy hasn't played. He didn't play this year, so now you're going to talk about sitting him again. And like when you're talking about what's his one thing that he needs is experience. So you're not going to put him on the field. You're going to let him get that experience in practice. I'd rather just put him on the field and Kyle work around him.
Yeah, I hear you. That's kind of how I would be too. I want to see him play. My concern is that he didn't play throughout 2020. I mean, he had the one game, but that just the time off away from the speed of the game would be my worry with that.
Yeah, he's he's going to get a lot of reps, and wherever he goes, I think he's going to get a lot of reps in preseason.
That's true.
And he's going to need it. But that would be my concern with him is experience, and then I think his go-to for when they're in trouble would be running the ball.
Yeah, that's exactly that's where the 49ers kind of would, if they can get their running game going, it's going to help out whoever it is that they draft. Really.
Yeah.
Outside of the quarterbacks, what are you thinking that they're going to do maybe in the later sight rounds 2 and 3? What are you thinking there?
It seems to me it just how they're shaping up the roster. I think it looks like that they're going to attack the secondary because if you look at the moves that they've done, I mean, they've loaded up their defensive line in free agency. I don't want to say loaded, but they've signed a bunch of guys in free agency. So it doesn't look like I know they needed another edge guy even after they signed. How do you say his name?
Ebicom?
Ebicom, yeah, Ebicom.
Uh-huh.
I thought that they still needed an edge guy after that because I don't count on D Ford, and I think to me one of the things I think the Niners don't do is they've had in the last year like they don't have after Ford they don't have another edge guy, like they're all tweeners after that, so like they need to have like two edge guys, like speed edge guys, in my opinion. But they did sign Arden Key, so I think he can at least spell there, and so I don't think that's as much as a need. And if you look at there's in secondary, like outside of the starters, to me, there's nobody there that you really feel comfortable playing. So I think they need to address that. And all those starters have a history of being hurt. Aside, maybe not. Mosley. Like Mosley's been hurt a little bit, but I don't think as much as the other guys.
Yeah, well, he's definitely hasn't been like Verrett, right? Verrett's never had 2 back-to-back seasons in his career so far.
Right.
It's been well.
Ward gets nicked, and he doesn't tend to not play full seasons. Tart, we know he's got injured. So and we saw Tarvarius Moore is not a productive starter in this league. So I wouldn't feel necessarily comfortable throwing him out there. I think, and then also you have to look to the future. Tart's on a 1-year deal. If he does play well this year, he'll probably get a big contract next year. So you have to plan ahead to try to replace him. And I think this is a great draft to do that because I think there's some safety depth in the middle of the rounds, and I think obviously this is a much heralded corner class. So I think it would be wise for them to address that corner position.
If they're going to go corner round 2, who would you suggest?
There's a bunch of guys. I know Tyson Campbell's name's been thrown out. I like the other corner at Georgia. I like Stokes better than I like Campbell. Both guys are fast guys, are twitchy. I think Stokes plays the ball better. I think he's Campbell will get beat. To me, Stokes is more sound, and he'll make plays on the ball.
How late do you think he's going to be there in round 3?
He might. I think he might. I think he's going to be between 2 and probably between 2 and 3. It's tough to say how the league views those guys.
Mm-hmm.
I like him. In the second round, I like the Stanford kid. I like, but I don't know that I would take him that high.
Paulson Adebo.
Yeah.
What about Aaron Robinson from UCF?
UCF. To me, he seems more of a nickel guy.
Yes.
And I think they need an outside corner.
Okay.
So I would aim for more of an outside guy, especially early. But they could also do. I would be opposed to doing safety in round 2 and then addressing corner later. And I think ideally, they got to get 1 safety and maybe 2 corners at least.
That's what I think. I did a mock draft yesterday, and that's kind of when I put my mock draft together. I had him taking Stokes at 69, doing a trade up from that 104 up to 69, and taking Stokes was still there. I used the PFF as my mock draft as the one they go through, and he was there at 69. And then I took the kid out of Minnesota. I don't know how you say his name. St. Just.
He's a big corner, right? 6'1", 6'2", something like that.
Yeah, about 6'2". Yeah, Benjamin St. Just, I think his name is.
Yeah.
I took both of those guys. I had one at 69. The other one was like 155. He was still on the board. And then I took Jamar Johnson in the middle. He's a safety, but I don't think he's going to last that long.
It wouldn't like I wouldn't if they had drafted like 4 different secondary players. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that because I mean the Bucks did that a couple years ago, and if and ended up with 2 starters out of it. So like the thing about it with the draft is like, and I posted this before is like if you get 2 starters out of a draft, that's a really good draft. Like you're not gonna have the draft like the Saints had, where they got 5, I think, starters out of it. That's like abnormal. Like not every guy is gonna be like even if you get a starter and like 2 contributors, that's like solid. So being able to not every pick, you can't just look at it like, oh wow, like if every pick doesn't work out, that's an F.
Right.
And I think if you're looking for secondary starters and you can just keep giving yourself more chances that one of those guys is going to work out because you keep addressing it, you might be able to find someone out of it. I mean, I think I remember going to a coaching conference a couple years ago, and there's this guy, and he always talked about like if you have a problem, nuke it. Like use it to kill a mouse with a nuke. Like like so. He means if you have a problem, just like throw everything at it.
Throw everything at it, you get it.
Yeah, just throw at it. And so like if you need to address the secondary, then address the secondary. Throw everything at it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's why I kind of went the way that I look at their secondary, and I don't like I like the way that Brett played last year. I don't have faith in him playing and making it through this year. So that's kind of why I had them taking a couple of guys, because I think they're going to need guys for down the road, backups and everything too.
Yeah. Just after quarterback, like quarterback, to me, it's quarterback, secondary, and interior line.
So you don't have wide receiver up high on yours at all?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think they've addressed it so many times lately. I think you can find UDFA guys. I think they have weapons there. I think to me, it's more important. They don't have the secondary depth. They need to address their interior line. They've had problems there. They need to get some young talent there, and you're bringing in a rookie. You'd like to protect him.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm going to just answer Lucas's question though, because he's all the way out in Austria. Holy moly, 2 o'clock in the morning. He's staying awake to watch us talk. And Diami Brown is a guy that I think he's great. I think he's explosive. I watched some of his film, and if they want to go receiver and he's on the board in the third round, I think they're looking at for him. I think that'd be a good selection.
I wouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Shanahan went receiver. He seems to do it every year. I wouldn't be surprised if he did it. I just, in my opinion, I wouldn't. That's not something that I would do. But yeah, Diami Brown is pretty good. There's a lot of dynamic receivers every year in the draft, and that's part of the reason why I wouldn't necessarily address it, because I feel like I can just get it next year. Like, am I able to get the value at corner in round 2 or 3 next year? I don't think so, but I feel like I can get the receiver value every year.
I'm just a little nervous on their wide receiver depth. I don't, just with Samuel just doesn't seem like he's able to stay healthy. And then, really, what do you have behind them right now? I'd have to look at it, but it's
Richie James. I think Richie James is underused, and I think the more you get him the ball, that you can play. I think you can use Dwelly. I think I haven't looked in who's out there in free agency, but I think there's some guys.
See, now you're getting into kind of where because that's part of why I always thought that the tight end, if they'd gone tight end in the first round, right, with Pitts, would have been a slam dunk for them because of what you just said. He's a tight end that fills multiple roles on their team. He'd be able to play. He's your slot receiver, tight end, outside receiver. You can put him wherever you want on the offense, receiver kind of a guy, really. But I like what you're saying, though. Using Dwelly in that role. Dwelly's a guy that should be used more than they use him, I think.
Yeah, and if you don't have, I mean, why can't we've played, or last year Shanahan played what's the name, the tight end in the slot. Why can't Dwelly play there?
Reed.
Jordan Reed. He played Jordan Reed in the slot. Why can't Dwelly play there? He's got great hands, just like Jordan Reed. Maybe he's not the polished route runner that Reed is, but if he can play that role, why not? I mean, it looks like they're looking. It seems like Shanahan wants that role. He's drafted Juan Jennings, and he's drafted Jalen Hurd. So it looks like he's looking for that kind of role. So why not let Dwelly do some of that?
Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, Dwelly's he's not your super stud athlete, but it's funny because when they give him a chance to play, and they try to incorporate him, he makes plays. It's one of I think he's a little undervalued a little bit, maybe it's because we're looking at him because he's only playing the small amount he is, right? Maybe it's kind of like, I remember everybody was super high on the safety that you were talking about a little bit ago. Why aren't they playing this guy? Yeah, why aren't they playing more? And then he plays a couple games, everybody gets excited, but then 2 weeks into him starting, they're like, get rid of this guy. Maybe that's what the problem. Maybe that's what would happen if it's Dwelly.
Yeah, there's some of that. I mean, you can also Jeff Wilson Jr. He's got good hands. We can split him out. You can split him out a little bit, and you can make use of the offensive personnel that you have. I haven't even looked to see who's left in free agency, but I think there's probably guys you can find that can be serviceable. And I mean, you're not asking them to go catch 1,000 yards, just catch a couple hundred.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely going to be some guys in free agency, even on the secondary. I think they were talking to Tony Jefferson there right before they made some of their signings. He's a safety, so
yeah,
on both sides of the ball.
Right. I mean, they've got the kid. He was a combine freak. They signed him. I think he was originally drafted by the Raiders. He's like 6'4", 6'3", 220. His brother's out in this draft. It's Ifanaway or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, he's on the roster. I'm interested to see if they try to move him to corner, actually.
Okay. Yeah, and then Lee asks, are there any running backs in round 3 to 4 that would be a future starter?
There's tons. There's tons of backs, I think.
There's a couple of guys late in the draft that they've shown interest in. Javian Hawkins out of Louisville is a guy that they've talked to. There's a running back from Ohio State. We were just talking about him yesterday.
It's not.
It's like Shermar or something or other.
Right.
And he's a bigger guy. He's a bigger kid. He's kind of like a Jeff Wilson Jr. size. He's about 5'11", 217, right in that ballpark. But I think if they're going to go running back, it's probably going to be round 7 or undrafted free agent.
I hope so. I'm not a fan of. They should not go running back early. It's a luxury pick. They've got other places to fill that roster. I think even round 4 is even a little early for it. I think that staff does such a great job with running backs, getting great value out of UDFAs and all that. Like, why would you waste that ability? Trey Sermon. Why would you waste that ability in the middle round when you can address other positions?
Yeah,
Chuba Hubbard. I think Chuba might go a little earlier than 4, but
yeah,
he's good back.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to getting this. We've been talking about it so long. I cannot wait for Thursday to come and I want to get this quarterback pick done so everybody can have their freak out session, whether they're pounding their chest because it's the guy that they were saying that was going to be the pick, or if the pick's Mac Jones, let everybody have their meltdown and then get back to their business.
Yeah, I've said it in this cast. I'm not a big fan of Mac Jones, but I don't think if they draft him like it's the end of the world. I think he can still be successful. I don't think he wouldn't be my pick because I don't think he can reach that like superstar level. I don't see it. And if I'm gonna make a pick, I want a chance to have that guy. But it doesn't mean it doesn't preclude them from being able to win. You're gonna have this, whoever it is gonna be on a rookie deal for 4 years. So you're not gonna have to pay him a lot of money. If he can be, if you think about it, I don't think in my opinion, 2019, Jimmy didn't play. He played well. He didn't play like, to me, he wasn't phenomenal or like. I think he's just a little bit above the middle of the pack to me, in my opinion. And I think if this guy is playing on that level, and you're not paying him $20 million, it means that equals another player, another high-level starter. And if you think about it in terms of Jimmy, if you had that money, could you have gotten a guard to block Chris Jones in the Super Bowl? And would that have made a difference? It would have made a difference on some plays. I don't know if it would have changed the outcome, but it certainly would help your roster.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I've always been with, like, because I've I've been high on Jones for a long time, and I think that you go back and you watch Jimmy in 2019, and I was one of those guys at that point. I wasn't watching the film as tightly as I do now, and you go back and watch it now, and it's like, man, there's a lot of guys that could do what he's doing, and I think you stick Mac Jones on that roster, or in that situation, he's going to be fine. He's going to be able to probably do everything that Garoppolo gave you, maybe a little bit more at times, but they still have that same issue. And, the savings, like you said, that's kind of why I've always, I think if you can get 4 or 5 really good years out of him, then you should have 4 or 5 really good years as your roster, because although you use that high pick to get him, that you're going to be able to supplant, with really good free agents. I think you're going to be able to keep your roster intact and whatnot.
Yeah, I think you can do that. I think there's a couple different ways that they could recover some of those picks. I don't know. I've always said if they get a 4th round for Jimmy, then they'll be lucky. I don't believe that they'll get more than that, but we'll see. If they happen to, like, that's great. If they get anything like a 2nd or a 3rd or like a conditional 1st, like, I'd be blown away, and I think that would be great. I think you can, in the future, if you hit on the quarterback, you can trade some of your receiver talent, because to me, I can find receivers, especially if your quarterback ends up being a high level quarterback, he'll make receivers. They always do. I mean, look at all of the receivers Pittsburgh has put out, Green Bay, even
True.
Seattle. Seattle now with like Russell. Like it seems like whoever he's throwing to. I know for all the things that DK Metcalf does, but Seattle's had receivers before that. And look who's throwing the ball. It's Russell Wilson, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So even in Atlanta, I mean, they find it like it seems like whoever's Matt Ryan is throwing to, it's getting 1,000 yards. So I think once you find the guy, like that becomes a position where you can make some headway. I mean, who's to say that if whoever they draft ends up being a star, like Trey Debo.
Yeah, possibly down the road. You're right, and be able to recoup some of those picks. And we've been going for almost an hour. I really appreciate your time on this one, and I think between the two of us, we're both on the track. Like we both said, you're Lance. You don't like Jones, but I like Jones, but I like Lance as well. So I think between the two of us, we're both going to be,
maybe they'll go Fields and shock all of us.
If they go Fields, I'm going to get on Twitter and no, I don't. I don't. He's not my favorite guy, but like I've said, kind of throughout, especially as the process is worn on, it's like just pick a guy, get the ball out there, let Shanahan get the guy that he thinks is going to be the guy. That's all I want. I just want Shanahan to get the guy that he wants, because then, if he fails, we know that it's on him, right? Because he's picked the guy. It's not like somebody else picked his quarterback for him. It's not like Lynch brought in Garoppolo without him wanting him or anything like that. No, he's got his guy. He's grooming his guy. In 3 or 4 years, he's either going to be here or he's going to be out the door. So
I think that's what's going to happen. Whoever the pick is, I think it's going to be Shanahan's pick. I don't think he'll be driven. If there is some discrepancy between him and the scouting department, him and Lynch and what they want, I think Shanahan's ultimately going to win out, and I think he'll end up picking the guy that he wants, and that's how it should be. You're the head coach. You're always tied to your quarterback, so he should be picking his quarterback, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah, I agree. No, I really appreciate you making the time to come on and do this today, and I know that you and I have talked about doing some other stuff too down the road, so keep an eye out, everybody, on the page, because I think Coach and I are going to get into some little bit more in-depth coaching stuff and whatnot to bring to you guys as we go through this before the season starts. So really appreciate everybody for joining. Thanks, Coach, for coming on, and everybody out there, have a great day.
All right, guys, have a good one.